So the session is being recorded. Please be mindful and respectful of the class environment and your fellow students. Anything you say, type, draw will forever be recorded with your name attached to it. Okay, so that's always worth saying. It's being recorded. I guess I should check, make sure audio is okay. Just do a quick poll. Should have done this first probably. Can you hear me okay? Testing, 1, 2, 3, test, 1, 2, 3. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Okay, looks like the audio is good. Okay, and just a note for those who can't hear me. All right, so it looks like the sound is okay, so I'm going to start. So again, the session is being recorded. I'm allowing you to ask a question orally. So if you want to use your microphone, you can. Okay, if you're not speaking, please remain muted so that there's no background noise. So what I want to talk about today is if we go through the file requirements, let's just go through this. I'll bring it up on screen again, share files. And we want to look at the requirements for this one. So let me just bring this up. Submission number 2 requirements. This is already posted online, I believe. It's just loading, just a second. So this is what Professor Neruzzi posted. Okay, so these are the requirements. So there's really 4 files you have to submit to me. Okay, I want your drawings again, so your base plan and your topo. Okay, it doesn't say that here about the topo, and the topo shouldn't have changed unless you had to make an update to something based on the first submission results. So we're looking at the plan view and the profiles, right? So I want all the drawing information. Now, I'm not going to be too picky about presentation for the drawings at this point, okay? So we want to see everything in plan, okay? I want you to create the surface is already there, but I want you to create the surface style with these settings, okay? And the labels, so put in the contour labels throughout. You want to do all your grading, right? So make sure you do all your grading design, and you can't do your grading without your profile. So all the profile design should be done. Okay, so I'm going to check your actual design in the drawing, the DWG file, in the AutoCAD file. So it says here grading, servicing, storm and sanitary bases. It's not the bases, it's really the drainage area plans, okay, which we talked about. We'll talk a lot more about the storm and sanitary again in a moment, okay? So it says here, I want a grading plan. Okay, so we want the grading plan. I just want the grading information. So make sure it's in the drawing. Make sure that you have, sorry, should we stack everything on top of each other in the drawing? In the drawing, because you're going to hand in PDFs for the drainage area plans, you can freeze your drainage areas. So sanitary and storm drainage areas, you can freeze those, right? But you can show me everything else. So servicing and grading mixed together, but not the drainage area plans. Yeah, that's a good question, Tron. Okay, so it says here, you know, the storm drainage area plan and the sanitary drainage area plan, it's in the drawing, yes, but I want to see a PDF, okay? And I'll explain much more about the PDF, okay? It's just a little bit of drafting setup. But everything else, grading and servicing, will all be checked from the drawing itself. Should we leave the driveway? Yeah, leave everything, yeah. Okay. Things you don't want to see are like the corridor models in the way. You don't want to see the existing ground triangle lines, right? Just the contours, like I explained there. You want to, you know, draft everything, you know, rotate all the points, make it look good. But servicing and grading together is fine. When you start to add the drainage areas on top, it gets a little bit cluttered. So we're going to separate that into into just PDFs. Okay. The other thing I asked you to do is create the finished ground surface. So if you could please create the finished ground surface. Let me just see. I think I have a requirement here as well. I have another file. Where is it? No, that's fine. So I'm just going to ask you to create the finished ground. And the finished ground simply is going to be create the surface, add the FG point group, and that's it. That's all you have to do. Okay, but I'm going to demonstrate all this in a moment. Okay, so let's go to the drawing. Excuse me. And I'll show you some of the setups. And I've advanced the drainage area plans a little bit beyond what I showed you of how to do them. Okay, so let me go and share my drawing with you here. I'm just going to set it up. And share my entire screen. Okay, so there's my CAD file. Okay, it's got everything in it. This drawing, like I said, is from a few years ago, so the standards for the profiles are a little different, and there's some other stuff in here which we haven't done yet. This has to do with the estimating, so don't worry about this. Okay, but in the plan view, and you wouldn't have this anymore either, so don't worry about this. Okay, so in your design, here's everything, right? I've got all my grading points, I've got all my sewers done, everything's completed, right? Everything up to date. What I don't want to see in the file is you can get rid of the you can freeze out the storm and sanitary drainage areas and plan. So I'm going to just put 0 here. So you can freeze out the storm and you can freeze out the sanitary. So that's what it should look like. Everything you've done so far. Now there's more here. This is an older design. There's more here than what we've been asked to do. Okay, so really this is what it looks like, right? So you've got all your grading, you've got all your pipes, your driveway, your services, all the design in one file. Okay, so that's what I want you to send me. In addition to that, you should have a surface for the existing ground. Okay, and don't look at all of my surfaces. I know you should have an existing ground, and the existing ground should have a contour style with 1/4 meter and 1/2 meter. This is not your subdivision. This is from a few years back. Okay, I'm just talking about the presentation, not the actual project. Okay, so make sure that the contours are on, right? So I can see the surface, and the finished ground surface should also be on. Okay, so make sure that the contour surface is on, and you can create a style. Actually, sorry, you can leave it as no display, but you have to create the finished ground surface. So if you look at the tin view, right, there's my finished ground. So you should see all of your design points on this surface. The finished ground is simply create a surface and add the point group called FG. That's all you have to do. Okay, it's very, very quick. Now, if your grading design is done, this is as quick as it is. Watch, let me show you. I'm going to turn this to no display. I'll create another one. Okay, so right click, create a surface, call it FG. I'm going to call this FG2 because I've already done this once. And then make it, you don't even have to have a display, but I'll show you, but then I don't want to see it. So create the surface, give it a name, FG. And then once that surface is ready, add the point group called FG, where all your finished ground points are. And that's it, stop there. Okay, we will do more to enhance this later when we do our cost estimate, but for now, that's all I want to see. Okay, and I don't even want to see that surface. As a matter of fact, create it, but then once you see that it's properly built, you can just put it to no display. So that's how I see it. So existing ground contours with the labels. Okay, and again, the labels for this, you know, oops, not legend. You can click on the surface, go to your contour multiple, and then again, wherever you draw this line, you're going to get a contour label, right? And then remember to turn off the visibility. You don't want to see the label, right? The line, just the numbers. Okay, so put contours throughout. Make sure that they're not overlapping other things, right? Like when you put them inside the subdivision, just be careful that they don't overlap your design, right? You want to be able to see your design, so you might want to strategically place them. What I like to do is put them around the perimeter, outside of the design area, and then strategically put a few inside, right? So if you're going to put one in here, whoops, if you're going to put one in here, I would do something like this, multiple or single. You know, I would put one here. I would put one here, right? But make sure that you don't overlap your design. You want to be able to read the design elevation. Okay. The colors, they're not too big a deal right now, but remember there are separate layers, so I will be checking for this. Okay, so let me show you one of these. I'm going to turn this off just for now. Okay, I want to see the contours based on the specification, but I'm going to turn them off now just to answer this question. So you'll see there's this many. Okay, and ignore this for now. So there should be a layer. There should be a layer at the front, a layer for the design, a layer at the existing at the back, proposed at the back. So if you look at the design, it looks right now like there's 2 layers, right? Red and white. But in fact, if you look at this, if you look at everything that's on, right, you should have a layer for the front lot corners. You should have a layer for the existing, and you should have a proposed layer at the back. Okay, plus all this, there should be 4 layers. Okay, I don't think I did this on this project. Let me just check, select similar. Yeah, I put it all on 1 layer. So let me fix that. So there should be a layer at the front, right? So all the front lot corners All the front lot corners should be on one layer. And you would have done this already, right? I'm just showing it now. So these are all the front lot corners from the design, right? At the front of the lots. Should have done this before class, but okay. So these are all front lot corners, including, yeah. So those are all the elevations from the corridor. Okay, don't worry about the ones out here right now. We're going to fix that later, but there are points out on this edge, right? But these are all the front lot corners that come from the, whoops, not this one. Okay, so I'm going to put those on a separate layer. And I'm going to put them on a layer called, I forget, front lot corners, R road, plan, propose, I think, plan, front. I might not even have the layer. I'm going to put them, I don't think I have the layer. I'll have to propose the layer. Okay, just a second. I'll put them on a separate layer. Sorry, I should have had this ready before class. So I'll put them here and I'll rename the layer. Yeah, okay. So for that marked layer, whoops, for that marked layer, yeah, so this should have been called C road proposed, whoops, proposed front. And you could have whatever color you want, but I'll show you the trick with this later. Okay, we'll turn those on. So those are the front lot corners. Okay, then the actual interpolated elevations at the back, these design elevations interpolated from the back, they would be on a separate layer, right? So these rear lot ones that come from the perimeter, those are on a separate layer. And again, I'm just giving you a general idea, right? Everything we designed back here along the original perimeter. So all of these back here are interpolated. All of these back here are interpolated. Okay, those would go on a separate layer as well. And the layer would be, I'll call it, I'll put it, I'm going to rename it this one. And we'll have, sorry, it was called, what did I call it, existing? Yeah, so this should be proposed road plan, proposed rear. Okay, those are the interpolated values. These are the ones shown in blue. Jan. Oops, where did it go? Plan rear, where'd those points go? Would have been this layer here, sorry. So these should all be on that proposed layer in blue. These ones here. Okay. Okay. So we have front lot corners, the design, rear lot, and existing. So you should have at least 3 layers. That's generally what it's going to look like. Now, like I said, at a glance, right, they're separate layers, but let me turn off the existing. All of these have the same description. So there's only 2 groups. There's a group for the proposed. So let's go back to here. Okay, we have a group for the proposed, the FG points, and I have a group for the EG points. Okay, ignore this for now. We'll talk about that another time. Okay, so there's 2 groups. Okay, there's all of these proposed points, whether they're interpolated, whether they come from the corridor surface, or whether you design them from the backyard, they're all going to be in one group. And then the others, the existing, are going to be in a separate group. So there's 2 groups. After I added street A and B to the corridor, when I looked at street B profile, it shows many, many points for some reason. I'd have to look at that, Daniel. Are you talking about a surface? Like, is your corridor surface in the profile? Is that maybe what happened? Are you talking about points or are you talking about surface? Profile. Are they points? Are you talking about extra points? Oh, for the surface, yeah. So that if you're looking at the corridor surface in the profile, you can delete that. It's just for reference to see the existing road you're connecting to. 500 new points. I'd have to look at it, Daniel. It's hard to know unless I see it. Okay. So why don't you send me an email and request a meeting, and we can look at that together. Okay. So let's go back to this. Again, there's two groups, and there's 4 layers, right? Front, back, and design. Okay. Those are the 4 layers. Okay. So there's 2 groups, existing and proposed, and the proposed layers has three layers. Okay, now I've color coded them yellow, red, and blue, but at a glance, right, I color code them in the model view, but when I go to my layout view, like when I do my presentation, and this is something for later, but if you do your M view, right, when you cut your sheet, right, when you cut your sheet and you zoom in here, right, regen, when you come in here, if you go to those layers that are on, right, all the proposed ones, can't spell, all the proposed ones will appear as if they are the same color. Now, don't change the color in the actual model space. Do it in the viewport. That's what the VP stands for. So here I would make them all red. So on paper, right, it looks like you have 2 layers, right? Let's establish the scale. This will be a 1 to 500. 1 to 500, okay? And then you can pan around and fit it wherever it needs to be. So on paper, it looks like you have 2 different layers, right? Red for proposed and black for existing. But in fact, what you're doing in the background is you have 3 layers for the design. And the reason you have those 3 layers is if your design changes and you want new elevations for the front lot corners, then you can quickly pick one, right click, select similar, and update just the points that come from the corridor. That's the purpose of it. Okay, so that's why we separate them into separate layers. Okay, so this, what you see now are the different layers for 4 different points, right? 1 existing, 3 proposed. But then on paper, really, this is kind of a model of the groups. There'll be 1 group for found, 1 group for existing ground. Okay, so those details are only known to anybody who goes into the drawing, right? Really, it looks like you have two separate types of points, existing and proposed, which is in line with the groups. But if in reality, it's actually a little more detailed in terms of how you organize your drawing. You want all the proposed points on separate layers based on their origin, right? Do they come from a corridor? Do they come from an interpolated value along the perimeter? Or is it an actual lot grading design exercise that produced those points? Okay, so that's one way of doing it. So once you have all this ready, like I said, once your design is ready to go, I would freeze out the drainage areas, okay, and just have all of this showing, okay, including the existing ground. I want to see the existing ground contours, right? So there's a spec for this. These are different. Again, these are not the specs I want. I wanted a 1/4 meter. Whoops, and I don't want the tin lines. I think it was the other style, this one. Right, so show me the contours for the existing ground, put the labels on for the existing ground. Create the finished ground surface, but I don't need to see it. Because when I mark it, I have my own style. So I'll actually insert a style so that I can look at your proposed ground. So I'll take care of that. Just create the surface for me, then it's faster for me to check it. I just have to apply a style. So that's how I should see your drawing. In order to build the corridor for each street, we need the assembly. Distances and slopes. If we made an assembly the wrong slopes and built corridor, do we have to? No, you don't. So just fix the assembly. So if you've created a corridor that has an error in it, just fix the problem. Never delete anything. Navjot, that's a good question. So if you go back, and let me save this, and I'll show you the one I did this year for this project. Let me open up the other drawing. So I'm going to go back. So this is the current one, the current design. So let me show you what I would do. Okay, again, this is incomplete because I'm still designing and talking about this course. If your corridor, let's say you mess this up, right? right? So let's suppose you made an error here. Here's a common mistake, okay? See this slope and this slope here? In the past, I've seen some students, instead of -2, they put +2. See how now there's like a low point at the center of the road instead of a high point? Okay, if that's what you did, okay, if that's what you did, and then you find the mistake later, you can always fix it. Whoops, you can always fix it. Let me show you. Right, so if you make a change, if you go to the corridor, you'll see, hey, something's different, right? That's what that little warning says. It says the current state of the corridor is different than the data that creates it. So it's telling you you've made a change to a part of it, whether it's a profile, an alignment, or a cross section, right? So if I rebuild it, it'll get wrong, right? So if I notice the mistake, as long as I don't delete anything, right? If I just modify it, so, oops, this should have been -2, no problem. Then you go back, rebuild your surface, and the error will be fixed. Okay, so that answers your question. Now, if you make a change to the corridor, now if I update it, I'm going to go and update all my front lot corners again. Right, so now all my front lot corners might have been wrong, so I have to get the information, the elevations from the surface again, the road surface corridor, and then based on the new elevations at the front, I might have to redo the lot grading in certain parts, right? So if there's an error on a part of your profile, let's say you just screwed up the profile. Oh, I mixed up I screwed up what happened on this part of Street B. So all the elevations over here are all wrong because I changed the profile over here. If you change the profile, rebuild your corridor, you can update all your points, but only the ones that are going to change are going to get updated. And then you can update just the lot grading that's affected by it, right? So if the front lot corners are the same as before, then your grading should be fine. If they change because the corridor model was updated, then anything born from the front, if the front is different now, you have to redo the grading for it, okay? It's not automatic, okay? Just think about how you built it, right? If you have front lot corners and you do your lot grading and any of the front lot corners change, you have to redo the lot grading in that part of the site. Unless it's a global issue like the one I just showed. If your cross section's wrong, then all of your elevations are going to be wrong everywhere, right? If it's your profile, it's only going to be affected where the profile was changed, unless your entire profile got updated and so on. Okay, yeah, that's the power of using the software, right? It's very, it takes a long time at the beginning to set up all your models, all your alignments, all your profile designs, all your corridors. Once you have them set up, if there's any changes, that's where the money is. That's where you save time because you can quickly update the design, update the affected items, and then quickly update the last few things related to it. Okay, yeah, so never start over again, right? Once you have a model, if there's any problems with it, we just fix them. We don't throw everything away and start over again. Yeah, that defeats the whole purpose of using the software. If you were doing the design on paper, that's the mentality. You have to start over again, okay? But that's not true in Civil 3D. Okay, so let's go back to these drainage areas. Okay, so here's the drawing. Here, this has everything in it, okay, that I want to see. Okay, all the layout for your sand and storm, all of your existing ground surface with labels, your proposed ground, and so on. Okay, when you go so this is the DWG I want you to hand in, and I also want you to send me the topo. Right, so both DWGs again. When it comes to the drainage areas, what you want to do is you'll see a title block, right? One layout tab will have a title block. You can do this once and then make a copy of it, right? So this is what I would do. So through the viewport and the guide, I'm going to be very obvious about this. The guide will ask you to actually look at the drainage area plan. So if you look at sanitary drainage, and if you look at storm drainage, this is a guide. Think of this as a drafting guide, okay? You want your drawings to look like this, okay? So what's showing? This is the storm drainage plan. In the storm drainage plan, you can see the existing ground contours. In the sanitary drainage plan, no contours. Okay, that's a major difference, right? So on the sanitary drainage area plan, you don't have to show existing contours. On the storm drainage plan, you do have to show the existing contours, okay? That's a typical thing to show, okay? You'll also have to show the areas and the bubbles, right? So all the ID data, right? So you want to show all of this and the delineated drainage area. And then when you look inside, if you look at the details, look at what's in the right-of-way. Not much. The only thing you see in the right-of-way is the edge of pavement. You don't even see the back of curb, right? The edge of pavement, the sanitary, with the sanitary service connections. There's no storm, there's no water main, there's no grading. Okay, so you can quickly set this up in the viewport. Okay, so let me set up my sanitary plan, right? So in here, I don't want to see my surface, right? So I'm going to put the surface on a layer that I can freeze, right? So if I list this, typically it comes in at layer 0. So I'm going to put it on a layer called C10. Okay, so I'm going to make sure it's not on, because you don't want to freeze layer 0 ever. So I'm going to put it on a layer called C10. Okay, so now if I go back to my viewport, does the title block matter? You know what? You can leave the title block, but you don't have to fill it out. Okay, just leave it there so you know how big to make the frame. Okay, so you don't fill out any of this just now. Okay? I want you to practice the layer control through the title block. Okay, it's through model space. Sorry, right? So this should be on a layer called viewport. If it's here, if it's not here, let me change that. So create a new layer, call it viewport. Okay, and when you create that layer viewport, you want to make it non-plot. So anything on that layer you don't want to see. I don't want to see the frame that you cut out. Is it all right not to have them? It's there. Just put it in. The title block is there. Just cut a hole and show me the title block. Don't change anything here, though. You can leave all this blank right now. Okay, so the title block's already there. Just use it. So put this on a layer called viewport. Okay. And it shouldn't be red. It should be whatever color the layer is. And it should be by layer. Okay. All right. So now you see the frame, but when you go to print this, you won't see it because it's on a no plot layer. I'll show you that again. Right. So if you go to preview, whoops. If you set this, this will already be set up for you. You don't have to do this, right? But it's on DWG. It's AutoCAD, I believe. You don't have to change any of this. It's all ready to go. Right, so notice you don't see the frame because it's on a no plot layer. Okay, and that's why you'll see so the frame is in the drawing, but you don't see it on the actual PDF. Can you import that title block into the layouts? It's already there. So when you open up the base plan, so if you used my template, there's a layout tab there with the title block already in it. If it's not there, then you made a mistake way at the beginning of the semester. No, so to make a copy is different. Okay, I'll look at that in a moment, Stephen. Okay, so there should be one layout with the title block. So use it. Start with that. Okay. No, so Trong, I want two layouts, one for sand, one for storm drainage. Okay, the grading and the servicing I'm going to look at in the drawing. Okay, so the design I'm going to look at directly. I just want to see your drainage areas. So in here, what you'll see, in here, what I don't want to see, right? So I'm going to go into the viewport, right? So right now I'm in paper space. See that triangle, right? If I click inside the viewport, you can see I'm now in world coordinates, paper space. Make sure once you establish the scale that you lock it, right? Make sure it's locked so that when you zoom, you're zooming in paper space, not in model space. And now what you want to do is bring back the storm drainage. So let's look at, sorry, sanitary drainage. So sanitary DR, right? I want to see these areas, right? So there's my sanitary drainage areas, okay? But I don't want to see the surface. So I'm going to freeze it, freeze the layer that the surface is on. It's called C10. Right, it's called C10. So I'm going to freeze it. Now I'm not going to freeze it in the model space. I'm going to freeze it in this viewport. So I'm going to use the viewport freeze. Okay, and now you can see the existing ground is gone in the viewport, but if you go back to model space, it's still in here. Okay, so we'll go back to layout. So now you have to go in here and freeze inside the viewport, right? And remember, make sure it's locked. Make sure your viewport scale is locked. You go into here, zoom in anywhere, and freeze any layer that's not related to sanitary. So storm has to go, grading has to go. So I'm going to freeze the grading. Yes, I'm going to freeze the grading. I'm going to freeze the water. I'm going to freeze the water. I don't want to see the driveway. I don't want to see the back of curb. I don't want to see storm. I don't want to see water main, nothing related to water main. I don't want to see the sidewalk. Okay. I only want to see the stuff related to sanitary. Okay, no storm, no water main, and so on. Okay. I don't want to see any dimensions, right? So now it looks a lot like what you would have seen in the preview, right? Whoops, right in here. So if you zoom in here, you don't even, actually they don't even show the road center line, right? They don't even show the alignment. So you can go back to that. Whoops, wrong one. Back into here, and you can freeze the alignment, or you can freeze the labels. So the labels or the alignment, I'm going to freeze the alignment. So again, freeze the alignment, which I believe is layer 0, so be careful. Oh no, it's on a different layer. Okay, if it's on layer 0, because by default it might be careful. You don't want to freeze layer 0. Okay, so there's the alignment. Regen. And once you freeze the item, then the labels will automatically disappear. Okay, so now there's nothing in the right of way except the pavement, the pipe, the service connection, and the pipe. Now you're not going to have this data, right? The labels, right? Don't worry about the label. Oh, I don't want to see this either. This is a water main item. I don't want to see the hydrant, right? So freeze the hydrant. Anything that's not related to storm or sanitary, anything that's not related to sanitary should not be on the drawing. Oh, there's more stuff back here. Freeze this layer, freeze this layer. Right? Very, very simple. Okay. So make sure that there's nothing related to storm, nothing related to water main, nothing related to grading showing on this drawing. Okay, even here, these labels, right? These are water main labels. Freeze the water main label for the bends inside the viewport. And you can even freeze the labels for the radii on the road. Okay, so it's very, very basic. It's not much showing. So that looks a lot like this now. Okay, now you'll notice it's not. I don't have this line type, right? This hidden line type. That's fine. Just make it a continuous line. Okay, that's hard to achieve if you don't if you're not careful with the line type, because when they overlap, remember these polylines all overlap each other on the edge, so the line type sometimes cancels itself out. Okay, so you have to be careful. I can show you that. Right, if I change this layer to a line type that's hidden, okay. See here, it looks like a continuous line because this pattern and this pattern are kind of in conflict with each other. You see that? So the effect isn't really that good. So you don't want these, right? And if you want, you can have these on one layer and have your label IDs on another layer. I did them all on one, but you could separate it into two. Okay? You don't have to, but it's better if you do. But I'm not going to be that picky, okay? Because it's really all just one thing, right? So you could have a layer for this, all the bubbles, and a layer for just the property, just the boundaries, right? So that's why I don't, so again, I changed the text type of the EG group, but it didn't show the change in the plan view. Change the text height of the EG group. Are you talking about the text height for this? So if you go to the tool space and you go to point groups under EG properties, the style for that is that it doesn't matter whatever your style name is, right? If you change the height, if I change it to 1.5 and I say apply and I say okay and I say apply, it should change. There you go, all different. That didn't happen, T? And if it, again, try regenerating the view. Should we include the grading points for storm since we already have the existing? No, we don't. I'm going to talk about that one next. Okay, so don't worry about the line type, okay? Just keep it continuous. I'm just interested in the area, okay? Make sure you drew it properly. So don't make it hidden, just keep it continuous. So that's different than what's on the other drawing. Okay, so as a drafting guide, the items you want to see are on this page, okay? But the thick dashed line for the areas, you can make them continuous. Okay, you don't have to have them hidden like that, okay? Because it won't look as good as continuous, so leave it alone, okay? So let's turn everything back on, Control A. All right, so what's the storm look like? Well, now I'm going to go back to my layout, okay? And this is the question about copy. Don't hit the plus sign. Okay, this is how you make a copy of this. You right click on the layout name, move or copy, move to the end, create a copy. So now you get two layouts and they're going to be exactly the same, right? So this layout was for sanitary. You can rename it SanDR if you want. Sanitary drainage. This one here is going to be for the storm. So storm DR. Right, so right now they look exactly the same. What's the difference? Well, I have to go in here now and manipulate some of the stuff, right? So I'm going to go back in here and I'm going to turn everything back on, Control A. So I'm going to unthaw everything. You don't have to unthaw everything, but I'm going to do it from scratch again, right? So I'm going to unthaw everything. It's back to that mess we saw before, but the contours are back on, right? So regen, and you should also see the drainage areas for storm. Where are they? I don't know why they're not showing. Storm DR, I'll turn those on. So there's a storm drainage plan. Okay, so in my case, they're green. So now you want to freeze out everything that's not related to storm. So we come into here and we go through the same process, right? We freeze grading information. We freeze the sanitary drainage areas, yes. We freeze the water. We freeze the driveway. We freeze the service connection for sanitary. We freeze anything related to sanitary. Right, so sanitary pipes, they're hard to see because they're all under the line, so I'll do it here. Right, so I don't want to see the sanitary, I don't want to see the center line of the road, I don't want to see the manhole, don't want to see this, it's related to water main, this is related to water main. I don't want to see the hydrants, sidewalks. That's it, regen. I don't want to see the labels, I don't want to see this, I don't want to see the center line. Regen. I don't want to see the sanitary pipe. Freeze. Once you freeze the item, the label disappears for it too. I don't want to see any of these dimensions, this design. I think that's it. Right. So make sure you don't want to see anything related to sanitary. Right, and there's your drainage area plan for storm. And again, if you look at this, right, it has all the areas. And if you look at the road, you'll see that there's only the storm information, right? Very, very basic. Remember the purpose of the drawing, right? Someone's going to look at this drawing and look at the areas you drew. So they want to make sure the areas make sense, and they want to know the information for each area that you delineated. The information in the bubble, is actually what's going to be typed into the spreadsheet. We're going to do that next week. Okay, so that's why I want to check this first. So when you hand this in on Friday, I'm going to mark it over the weekend. And if there's anything I think you should fix, that's the time to do it. Because then these numbers in the bubbles all go on the spreadsheets. Okay, so that's why I want to check them before we go too far down that road. Okay, that's why I want to see what you're thinking at this point before we go too far down. And again, leave it as a continuous line type. Okay. So this is the drafting standard, right? Make your sanitary drainage areas look like this, or your plan, and make your storm look like this. Once you're ready, once they're both ready, just print them off, right? And again, don't worry, I know which is which, right? I know which is sanitary, right? Sanitary bubble only has two pieces of information. Storm only has two pieces, and the sanitary has three. Oh, I froze this. I thawed this. I got to freeze it in here. I don't want to see storm in the sanitary, right? So there's your storm drainage. Sorry, your sanitary drainage. There's your storm drainage. Print them off. Say no, and just print them off. One's going to be called storm DR, and the other one's going to be called sand DR. Okay, there's your preview. For storm, do blocks 57 and 58 have a different runoff coefficient? 57 and 58. Let's go back to our drawing so I know which ones you're talking about. 57 and 58. Oh, those are the, no, treat them the same. Treat them adjacent. So this is adjacent to this. Just treat it as a single lot. And this is adjacent to this, to 51, 52. Yeah, treat it as a single lot. Yeah, not a townhouse. Okay. All right, so the reference grading model has it at 0.25. This thing? reference. Oh, you're talking about this? Talking about here? You're talking about this thing here? Yeah, it's a grassed area, but I'm going to ignore that. I'm going to be conservative. I'm going to leave it as 0.5. It's such a small area that it's not going to be significant. So it really doesn't matter what the runoff coefficient is. So for the sake of keeping it simpler, I'm not going to do that. Just use 0.5 instead of 0.25. Okay. The extra flow it's going to generate because of a higher runoff coefficient is not significant because the area is so small. You can do that if you want, but I'm not going to be that picky. It's not going to make a difference. Okay. Does that answer your question? Carl, are you satisfied with my? Okay. Like I said, you can if you want, but if I was designing this, I wouldn't do that. I would just lump it all together with the adjacent land use type. Yeah. And that's conservative, right? I'm actually increasing the flow by a little bit, which is conservative, as opposed to not counting it at all. All right. Any questions about the sanitary or the storm drainage area plans? Okay. And again, in the drawing, when you print these, don't fill out anything here. Just leave it blank. Okay. Just leave it blank. Later, when we do the actual drawings in your final submission, are going to be the grading plan and the plan profile for Street A. Those we're going to want the title block filled out, okay, in all the detail. Okay, so right now I'm really just concerned with the bare bones of the design. I want to make sure the design is correct. So after, not this submission, but after the third submission, your design will be done. And then the last final submission is going to be about presentation drawings for grading and plan profile and your cost estimate. And I'm going to show you a whole bunch of tips and tricks on how to get all your quantities, okay, at the end. Okay, but you can't do that until the design's done. So the last thing to design after this submission is the pipes, sanitary and the storm pipes, right? Getting doing your design sheet, getting all your sizes and slopes, drawing it in profile like I taught you last semester in CDA. Okay, any questions about the drainage areas? So there are 4 files to submit. Okay, and if you go to the website, can you see the? I don't think. Can you see my screen with the website? Can you see the course web page? I have to come back to see it. Yeah, you can. Okay. So in the course web page, if you go to assignments, you'll see here submission 2. And you'll see it lists the drawings, right? So what I want the 543 base, 543 topo, those are the DWGs, and then the SAN DR and the storm DR, those are the PDFs. Right? When you print those, right? When you print those, and you're done, in the drawing, if you go back to the drawing, if you go back to the model space, okay, once you've printed, you can actually freeze the drainage areas here again, right? So then freeze. I don't need to see the storm and the sanitary drainage areas in this file. Okay, so after you print, you can come back and turn these off. Or sorry, freeze them. Can't freeze them when you're printing, otherwise you won't see them, right? So I don't see the need to see storm and sanitary. The corridor is frozen and so on. Okay? So that's what I expect to see. All your servicing and grading with your existing ground surface. And don't forget to build the finished ground. Okay? Don't forget to build the finished ground. It should look something like this. Right? The extent of the site. It's going to be a little deficient on the edge here. Okay, don't worry about it. But again, very, very simple. Create the surface, add the finished ground point group, and that's it. Don't modify it or enhance it or put a boundary. Leave it blank, right? So it should take you 3 seconds to do that. I don't think the submission folder is open for us. Oh, let me do that right now. Maybe you can't see it. Yeah, okay, so I'll make this available right now. And I'll make it available. It's going to be make assignment available, and it'll be good till Friday. And the due date is Friday. End of day. Submit. Oh shoot, sorry, submit. Make it available. I thought I did. Hang on, make it available. Oh, sorry. There, okay, it's there now. Sorry about that. Okay, do you want to check it? Sumitra, just to double check, should be there now. Can you demonstrate how to use the Excel sheet for lot design? I can't remember how to use it. Yeah, I can do one. I'll do one, okay? I shouldn't have to do this, but I will. So I'm gonna go to properties, turn this off, no display. So I'll do one from last year. I'm gonna turn this off as well, existing, it's just in the way. Make it no display. Any particular site you want me to look at, Michael? Does it matter? Just in general. Okay, in general. Okay, so let me do a couple here. Okay, these are the options that you're going to see. Okay, so I'm going to design this again. I'm going to design this and this and so on. Okay, so let me turn off a few things. And you want to see the spreadsheet, right? How I use the spreadsheet. Okay, so let me go get the spreadsheet. So the spreadsheet looks like, go back to CDA from last semester, or yeah, CDA. That would have been module 5. And I uploaded module 4. So this thing here. Okay, so in order to do this, you have to set up a few things. Okay, so what's not going to change is 8, 12, 7.5. Okay, what's important are the first two. Okay, the backyard is going to be whatever it needs to be. There's going to be no extra depth. Okay, so there's going to be no 3-to-1 at the back or the front. Right? There's no front drainer with 3-to-1. There's no walkout with 3-to-1. Okay, most of your design is going to be in here. Is going to be -2, -3 at the back. Okay, so you're really going to be in here. So to use this spreadsheet, you have to do a couple of things. Okay, so make sure this says 8 and 12. I'm just going to highlight these in a different color. Whoops. Highlight this in a different color. So orange and orange. So these two have to be 8 and 12. And this is what you're going to vary all the time, right? So how do you get that length? So this, you can list it, or you can measure the distance from the back to the front. Right, so now I know it's 3729. I'm going to copy that. I'm going to put it right in the spreadsheet. Right, so I'm going to paste it. So based on that, I'm getting all these numbers now. Right. Again, there may or may not be extra depth at the back. Okay. Total might be, if you look at the sum here, right, might be less than 27.5. All right. So now that I have that dimension, I'm going to measure the distance. So I'm going to turn my OSNAPs to node, and I'm going to measure the distance, DI for distance, from the front to the back. So I'm going to do 2120. So I'm going to go here, and I know that it's -382, right? -382. So now I go to the spreadsheet. -382. So -382 is between these two numbers, right? So there should be a solution where the front is 2% up and from the back 2 or 3. So you might have to do this twice. So the command is high-low, 2% up from the front, 2% up from the back. If you get a solution inside the building envelope, you're done. If that doesn't work, try 2 at the front and 3 at the back. Okay, so let's go look at this. So let me draw my, I think this is an X reference. Yeah, so let me draw my line from here to here. I'm going to offset 8. That's where the front of the building is. Offset 12. There's the back of the building. Okay, so let me check this solution. Okay. Again, this is probably wrong. I had different standards over here, right? So let's check this again. So from here to here, we had 382. So now I'm going to go high-low. So I'm going to go to points, create points, and I'm going to use the high-low command. I start at the front, go to the back, and then I say G 2%, enter, and then G 2% again. And notice I'm in the front yard. That's no good. So I'm going to do it again and use 2 and 3 at the back this time. So same thing, high-low, here to here, G2, G3 this time. And that'll pull the point toward the back of the lot. There's a solution inside the building envelope. So this one's no good. So use that one, and so on. Now you will get to a point where that's not going to work anymore. Okay, so let me show you one more time, high-low again. So if you want to use this one, right, so I'm going to measure the distance from here, the distance from the end point to the end point, or you list the line, right? So I know now it's 3662. So you want to do this again, 3662. Oops. So here we want to do 3662. And now I want to measure the distance from front to back, distance from here to here. And it gives me negative 435, negative 435, negative 435, again, is between here. So there should be a solution 2 and 3%. So try it again, high-low. So from here to here, G2, enter, G3, enter. Sorry, G2 again. I did 2 and 2. Sorry, 2 and 2. Yeah. So notice I'm in the front yard again, right? If I extend these over to here, right? Notice it's in the front again, so I'm going to try 2 and 3. So high-low, front to back, G2, G3, and now I'm inside the building envelope again, so I'm good to go. Okay, so that's basically it. You will get to a point where it may not work anymore. Okay, so let's look at these. And everyone's going to have this kind of an issue in the backyard. Okay, so if I, let me draw the arc. So if I offset 8 meters, offset 12 meters, there's my building envelope. Okay, let me get rid of this, try this. So I'm going to measure the distance from here to here. So now it's 38,347. Back to the spreadsheet. And then I'm going to measure the distance vertically. The distance from the point to the point at the back is negative 865. Negative 865. So I'm between these two. Okay, so look, it wants to be a back split, right? Somewhere between a simple split and a back split. So I'm going to try 2 and 2, and then 2 and 3. Let me just try the simple high-low, see if that works. So I'm going to go high-low from the front to the back, G2, G2, and it says point was not between the selected points. Okay? So what's happening there is the difference now is so high that there's no solution between the front and back of the lot. Okay, let me do it one more time, high-low. So from here to here, G2, G2, and it says it's not working. Okay. If you measure the slope, right, if we go to inquiry, list slope, you'll find from here to here is rather steep. It's already down at 2%, right? So if you go up at 2% from the front and up at 2% from the back, they're going to miss each other. Okay, what am I talking about? I'll just draw the sketch here. So if this is the front of the lot, and this is the back of the lot, and you have a 2-point-something% grade from front to back, right? If you start at the front and you go up at 2%, and you start at the back and you go up at 2%, they won't cross between these two lines, right? If you extend this and you extend this, they never meet between the front and back of the lot. That's what's happening, right? Because the grade difference is so high. So in that case, you have to force the back split, right? Which is what it's telling us to do. So in this case here, if there's no solution because this is too high relative to this, you use the distance command. You start here, you go to the front of the house, G2, go back to the front of the house, enter, enter, enter. That's 2% up. If you measure from here to here, you'll find it's steeper than 3%. Let's just check it. Inquiry list slope from here to here is negative 343. Now you can almost get away with that. It's not too much steeper than 3%, but if you want to do a true back split, now you come up at 2% from the front and you come up at 3% from the back. So start at the back with the distance command, intersection, G3, intersection, and there's your back of house. And then if you go back to the graphic on the spreadsheet, right, so come up at 2%, come up at 3%, and now use your high-low to get the top of slope of the 3-to-1 of the back of the house. So you're going to come down at 3% from the front of the house, up at 3-to-1 from the back of the house, and it'll find that top of slope for you. Right, so now we go back to the high-low command, front of house, back of house, G minus 3 from the front. Whoops, change my coordinates back to world. High-low, sorry, high-low, from the front of the house to the back of the house, G minus 3 and S positive 3 up from the back. And there's the top of slope. It's very, very skinny, right? It's not much of a 3-to-1 slope. When I did the lot grading, the arrow for direction did not show up. Is there a way to bring it back? You're talking about that little yellow graphic? Yeah, it won't show up like it just didn't for me, if you notice when I tried this before, if you're not in world coordinates. So if I change this, see the world coordinates, see I've changed the coordinate system? If I try it now, you won't see it. Okay, so if I go to high-low, whoops, sorry, let me just get rid of that one. Let me do the high-low command. High-low, so if I click here and I click here, see how I don't see it? So if I say G minus 3 or S3, it does the work, but doesn't show you the graphic. You have to be in world coordinates. Otherwise, you won't see that visual cue. So again, high-low from here to here, G minus 3, S3, and there's the solution. So it'll still do the math and put it in the right spot, but it won't show you the graphic. Try that way. Let me know if it works. Migrating between 14 and 15 is a simple split. Is it still okay? Yeah, this is a different layout, right? This is a different design, right? Notice we have back-to-back lots here. You don't have that. Yeah, very good. Any other questions? Did you notice the lot grading is very, very typical? It's mostly high-low. It's mostly high-low. For between 2 and minus 2, you said that we have to do the following. 2% to the back of the house, and the front slope will be steeper than 3. From the front of the lot to the back. What happens if it is not steeper than what happens if it is not steeper than 3? As long as your slopes are all between 2 and 3%, you're good to go. Okay. So what happens sometimes, Wei, is when you do your high-low command, you remember I was getting a point in the front yard, right? So then I had to change the slope at the back to pull the point into the house lot. Sometimes if the point is in the front of the house, you can force, sorry, in the front yard, you can force it to the front of the building. And then from there to the back is going to be a little steeper. There's more than one solution here, right? So watch this. I can use the distance command. If I go from here to here with a grade of 2, and go to here, right? That's 2% to the front of the house, right? This is a high-low solution. I've gone from the front to here at 2% and from the back to here up at 3%. But I can go from here to here at 2%. And then, let me show you the slopes, inquiry list slope, right? So I can go from here to here, 2%, from the back to that point, 3%. That's one solution. But there's many solutions between here and here, many solutions. Okay? The one at the front of the house will give you a slope to the back that's a little flatter than 3%. So let's try this again, inquiry list slope. If I force it from the front of the lot to the front of the building, that's 2%. From the front of the building to the back of the lot is going to be between 2 and 3, 2.62, right? So as long as the front is always 2% and from the back is between 2 and 3, that works. So I could use this split, I can use this split point, I can use this split point, or I can use any point in between where if I start at the front, I go up all the way, either minimum here, maximum here, a distance of 2%, right? So I have to go to the front of the building, so that's one solution. I can't go further than this, otherwise the back gets steeper than 3%. But if I start at the front of the lot and I go up at 2%, anywhere between these 2 points, then I know my slope to the back is going to be between 2 and 3%. Right? So start here, go up at 2%. I can go here minimum, here maximum. Anything in between will give me a slope to the back that's going to be between 2 and 3. Okay? So there's not one solution, right? There's different preferences on how you want to do this, but those are some options. Okay? So that's how you use this spreadsheet. It's very handy. Like I'll be honest with you, a former student actually created the spreadsheet for me based on the hand calculation sheet that I showed you last semester. And I've asked their permission if I can use it in class. So I forget his name now, but he put this together for his own purpose. And then he sent it to me and said, hey, this is what I did. So I'd like you to, I can't remember who it was. This was a few years back. May have been, I don't remember. But anyway, I know I've visited students at work after they graduate, and some of them are still using it, especially if you haven't done lot grading for a few months or weeks. And you got to get the cobwebs out of your brain. Sometimes people go back to it for reference, right? But I'm telling you, after a while, when you do enough lot grading, all this happens in your head. Like not the numbers, but the concepts, right? If they're compatible, simple split. If it's higher at the back, it's a front. If it's much lower at the back, it's a back split or a walkout, right? And you start to get a sense for this after a while, right? I mean, just think about any skill you learned, right? At the beginning, you're really cautious and you want to make sure you get it right. So you're going to use the tool all the time. But I mean, after a while, like, does it really matter if this number is 30, 32, or if the number is 35, or if the number is 36? You know what I mean? Like it doesn't vary that much. There are some significant changes, right? But for the most part, if you look at this, if you look at this site, wrong one. If you look at this site, these do change, but they're very, very, very small. If you measure the distance from the front to the back here, you have 31.1. And if you measure here, you have 30.17, right? So if I was doing this lot grading, I will probably set this once at 31 and be done with it. That would be close enough, right? I wouldn't go and change this number every time for the sake of 0.2 or 0.3 meters. It's not going to be that significant, right? It might become significant when you get really long, right? And now you're getting to these two corners here. Maybe you want to set it again. Right? But I'm telling you, after a while, and if you haven't discovered this, after a while, you're not going to use this much anymore, right? You might refer to it once or twice if it's been a while, but for the most part, I don't need the spreadsheet anymore to do any lot grading. And that's not because I have 20 years experience, it's because I've designed, many, many units in the beginning of my career. Like my first project was 1,200 lots. At the end of that job, I was pretty much an expert, or at least comfortable with what I had to do. Okay, any other questions? Michael, is that enough as far as the refresher on the spreadsheet? No problem. Anybody else have any questions? Is it clear what you need to do for Friday? What you have to hand in for Friday? 2 drawings, 2 DWGs, and 2 PDFs. Okay, like I said, I get it Friday, I'll mark it on the weekend, and I'll email you the results like I did last time. And again, I'll highlight, what absolutely needs to be corrected before you go forward. Right? So there's some stuff that I'm just going to mark and that's the end of it, just like before. There's some stuff that, you should fix this because it's going to affect the next part. So I'll give you that direction as well so that you don't waste time. Okay. Again, any problems you get, if you don't get full marks on anything, on some things, I would correct it all, especially if you're putting together a portfolio, but it's not necessary. Okay. I'll identify the absolute minimum thing that needs to be corrected going forward, right? Like I think you can see by now, if there was something wrong with your alignment or your edge of pavement, it's going to have an effect on your profiles, right? And if there's a problem with your profile design, which I'm going to mark now, it's going to have an effect on your grading, right? So on. So I hope that that's all good to go. If the grading needs to be revisited, then maybe you need to look at your drainage areas again, especially for storm. Right? So it's all kind of builds on itself. Okay? So hopefully there's not too many problems. Usually any small things, you know, it's not gonna, if I realize if it's not gonna have an impact on, you know, the next phase of the design, you know, I'm not gonna make it a requirement that you fix it. But there are certain things that have to be correct before you can go on. Okay, I'm just gonna, okay, so this is due Friday. I just want to have a sense here. So here's a question. Have you completed the lot grading? Have you done the lot grading? I just want to know where everybody's at. There's only about half the class here, but that might be a good indication. So it looks like half of you, more than half of you have done it. Anybody else? There's about 5 of you haven't answered the question. Please answer the poll. So it looks like, okay, so more than half of you have done the lot grading. That's good. You should change some. Okay, if there's an issue, yeah, maybe you should change some. Like I said, it's coming down to the wire, right? The profiles is probably the most complicated part, especially street B, where you have the 2 high points and the low point leading into street A. So that's probably the more complicated part of the design. But once that profile is ready, you know, there's a lot of work to do, but it's very repetitive, right? Create your corridor, get your front lot corners, design that backyard based on the graphic I gave you, right? The kind of the sawtoothing at the back of those units. Right, let me just share this again. Right, so when you're looking at the backyard elevations, right, what's happening back here based on these graphics, let me just show this again. MED, yeah, so based on this, right, I told you what to do back here. And again, it's a guide, right? I told you what the relationship between the points of the back. You can't do this lot grading at the back until your corridor elevations at each end are correct, or, you know, close to what I've got. And then you can do all your elevations along the backyards, and then you've got your front and back to do, which shouldn't take too long. Like I said, most of the design is simple split. There might be a back split over here somewhere, right? Maybe between 5 and 6, but that's the only place I anticipate a problem. Okay, any other questions? Okay, again, I apologize for the late start. I had some personal things to take care of. My goal today was, again, just to explain what exactly I'm looking for the submission on Friday and to answer any questions. So I meant this to be a work period. So any other questions? For storm drain, is there a very large rear lot drainage area for 4 to 22? We split this area 4 to 22. Oops, let me look at ours, sorry. So you're talking over here. Four to 22. It's going to be split based on the pipes back here. So that's a good question. I'm going to assume that these backyards are going to be allowed to drain into here. So let's look at the drainage area for storm. Okay, so I'm going to assume this. Right, so there should be a split here, and there should be a split here. Okay, so where are these areas? It's kind of, you almost want to scale off of this drawing where these divides are, this divide and this divide. Right, because we're going to take backyards here and add it to this area, and backyards here and add it to this area, and backyards here and add it to this area. And then we're going to check that these existing pipes can take that extra flow. Same thing with the front here. Okay, so to find where these drainage divides are, right, is not going to be an easy task. Let me see here. How are we going to do that? So you would need to know where the maintenance holes are. See that maintenance hole? That's where the divide is. And this maintenance hole. So you would need these 2 maintenance holes as a minimum, and this one. And I don't think we have that in the drawing. Let me just check. Yeah, see, that's not on the drawing, that pipe system. Okay, there is a way of fixing that. If you want to use the PDF, I might have to give that to you. I'm just thinking now. There's a couple ways of doing it. I could give it to you, or I could ask you to create it. It's the best way. We could xref the PDF. We could do that. And that's a good question, Tron. Well, let me think about that. Can you attach PDFs? Yeah, I'll show you. Okay. So I'm recording this, so anybody who's not here today can learn how to do this. There's more than one way, right? If I had the maintenance holes, like I have on this street, right, I would use the maintenance holes as reference. Because I don't have them, I want to see the PDF. So you can actually x-reference a PDF. So here's how you do that. I'm going to create a new layer called xref. I'm going to make it current. And I'm going to x-reference. So here's how you do it. Here's how you x-reference a PDF. Okay. So xref is the command, right? So instead of a drawing, it says here DWG. You can open this up and choose a PDF. Now the problem with PDFs is they're not georeferenced. Okay, so let me show you. There are manholes from the existing data. Okay, let's take a look at that. I'll still show you the PDF though. So if you go to the topo, so you're saying from the topo, there should be. I turn that off, reload. And I want to freeze that surface layer on the topo C10. Okay. Oh yeah, the maintenance holes are there. Oh, but that's the sanitary maintenance hole. And that says SA for sanitary. And I don't know if you can use those. That says sanitary. Let me look at the drawing again. See this existing sanitary and this existing sanitary? I think that's what it's picking up. So you can't use that. That's a good try though. Okay, so these maintenance holes are sanitary. MHSA for sanitary, right? So this one and this one and this one is sanitary, right? And then you'll see the sanitary sewer here, right? This is sanitary sewer and this is the sanitary sewer. Yeah, so you can't use that. The storm sewers aren't there, so we have to use this PDF method. Good try. That's a good try. Unload. So here's how you do the PDF. Okay, so again, you're going to open this up. The default is DWG. I don't want a DWG. I want the PDF. So I'm going to navigate to where the drawings are. So MED, and this is the storm drainage areas, which is this one. So when this comes in, it's not going to be georeferenced. This is the problem, right? And I'll show you how to deal with it, right? So I'm going to specify, I'm going to put this where I want. Don't worry about the scale or the angle, right? So just place it nearby. There it is. Okay, so the sheets, the rotation might be off. The size is certainly going to be wrong and so on, right? So I'm going to make this a little bigger so we can see. Just going to scale it, make it 5 times bigger. Okay, and just going to rotate it very gently so that I can see it, right? So it's in the wrong spot, it's the wrong size and so on. So to georeference the PDF to the site, you need 2 points, okay? And I usually like to use the legal points. So I'm gonna go into here and let me turn, I'm gonna isolate this layer and I'm gonna isolate this layer, the boundary, okay? So in this drawing is this boundary. So I'm gonna use this georeferenced boundary and use it to align the drawing. Okay, so you want to map 2 points. Usually what I try and do is a diagonal, right? So one of these points and maybe this corner, or one of these points in this corner. Always use a diagonal. You could use one line if you want along one of the edges, but I always like to use the diagonal. Okay, so I'm going to do this. I'm going to map it. I'm going to explicitly draw a polyline, and I'm going to use this corner here, endpoint. Okay, and then instead of going directly there, I'm going to actually go way out here first and then come back. So it's the bottom daylight triangle on the southwest corner. So it's this corner here. And you'll notice it starts getting a little bit slow as I move into the image. Okay, So you can see it's not easy to tell what's what. But the PDF, because it was born from a drawing, you can actually snap to the parts of the drawing. Okay, give it a minute. All right, so if I turn my OSnap to endpoint, you can actually snap to features on the PDF, believe it or not. Okay, so the line you want is right in here. Okay, is right where, see how there's a double white line here? Let me zoom in some more. There's this double white line. It's the outside line and the outside line here. So I'm going to draw this. I'm going to use I'm going to trace it just so you can see what I'm talking about. I'm going to use, I'll call my OSnaps as I need them. Let me change the color of what I'm drawing to red so you can see what I'm talking about. So I'm going to draw a line. I'm going to draw a line from a near point here to a near point here. And I'm going to draw a line from a near point here to a near point here. And I'm going to fill it with a radius of 0 where they intersect. Okay, so that's the corner. Okay, that's one spot. So I'm going to draw a polyline from here. I'm going to zoom right out. Right, you have to find the exact position. Okay, and I'm going to bring it out to here. Okay. Now, when you do this, make sure, always list them. Make sure that the coordinates, the Z is always 0. You don't want to rotate this in 3D. Okay, so this blue dot here represent the same location. Right? Sorry, somebody unmuted themselves. Now I'm going to try and find this corner here. Right? So I'm going to draw a polyline from here straight out to here, and I'm going to find that corner on the drawing here, which is right around here. Again, if it's hard to see, I'm going to draw a line from a near point here to a, oops, just a line, a near point here to a near point here. Right? And be careful. Make sure you're snapping to the actual line. See how it's kind of doesn't know what to do there, so be careful. And draw a line near point. And it doesn't have to be perfect, but you want to get it as close as possible. And then you also want from here to here, the outside. There's always a double line right here. The reason there's a double line is because there's a legal boundary. There's an extra foot that's identified so that nobody can cross into the property. So from here to here, that's the corner, right? So I'm going to draw a polyline from this corner. And that point represents, right? So this blue dot belongs here, right? This blue dot belongs here to this blue dot, and this blue dot belongs here. Make sure all your reference lines that you're using are all 0 elevation, right? Everything is 0. You don't want to rotate this in 3D. You just want to rotate it in the plane. Okay, so now I'm going to turn my OSnaps to endpoint. So here's how you align it. It's one command. It does two things at once. It'll translate, so it'll move the PDF, it'll rotate it, and it'll scale it all in one shot. One command does all that. Okay, so it's called align, AL for align. Okay, it's called the align command. So hit enter. It asks you, just pay attention to the prompts, which object, the PDF. So you click on the PDF, enter, and then it says first source point. So now the reason I drew these polylines is so that I don't have to zoom in and out all the time. I've already done that work. So I can just use my OSnap, and I'm going to use my OSnap strategic. See here, I'm hovering near the midpoint, right? I don't have to get right in there. I know that the end point of this red line, this end point, not this end point. So I want to go from here, click, to this white line, not this end, but this end. And notice I don't have to zoom in, right? I'm using this long polyline to find this coordinate. So that's one. Then it's asking me for a second source. I'm going to start here, not this end, but this end of the red line. And then I'm going to go here, and again, not this end, but this end. So I'm going to click here. It's asking me for a third source. I don't need it. I'm just going to hit enter. Okay, you only need 2 points. So when you get to the third source, just hit continue, enter. And then it's going to ask you, do you want to scale it? This is where you have to say yes. Okay, so it happens very, very quickly. Watch. When I say yes and I hit enter, watch. It's going to move. It's going to rotate. It's going to scale all at one time. Watch. Okay, and now if I turn my layers back on, now you don't need these anymore. Okay, I'm going to get rid of these. Okay, so now, oh, those are the lines I drew. So now if you turn everything on, you'll see everything exactly where it's supposed to be. Whoops, everything. Right? I didn't move anything but the PDF. So now the PDF is in the right spot. Oh, thank you. So now if you turn on your storm, not your sanitary, I'm going to turn this off. I'm going to turn on my storm, storm DR. Oh, I don't have it in this drawing. Anyway, you turn your storm drainage plan on, then you know where to draw your divide lines, right? Because you can see them there. Again, the image really slows down the drawing. There's a lot of data there. It's actually a PDF, but it's got vector data in it. That's why you can snap to endpoints, and sometimes even if it's really smart, you can actually snap to the center of stuff. So some of the O-snaps work, some doesn't. Depends on how the geometry comes through on the PDF. Right, so there's your drainage divide in the backyard. So there's one here for storm, and there's one here for storm. And then in the front yard, there's one here for the high point of the road. Right, so you probably have a long area here. It's divided by this line here. Right, so these front yards are going to have to be added to this area, and these front yards are going to have to added to this area, and we're going to have to check this sewer as well. Okay, we're going to check a few together. Okay, and then there's a couple I'm going to one I'm going to ask you to do yourself. Okay, I'm going to do Chuchmak, okay, and then the others will have to. I haven't decided yet. Right, next week I'm going to cover this. You can do the exact same thing with the sanitary drainage. And then if you wanted to, you could actually grab some of the standards. Right, how big you want to make this circle? Watch, I'm going to draw a circle. If you want the same drainage bubble, right, you can trace the circle. It might not let you snap to the center, right? This is a little bit beyond the scope of what I want to teach, but if I want to draw a circle and I want to snap to the center, right? The center might not, see, it won't snap to the center because it's actually a bunch of polylines, it thinks. So what you can do is if you draw a circle with 3 points, let's get rid of this, I'll show you. So if you say C for circle, right? If you click, it wants to draw it from the center. You can draw C, enter, and then type in 3P, 3 points, and then you can snap to an endpoint, and another endpoint. You got to snap a little better than I did. Let me try it again. C, 3P. And then I go endpoint, endpoint, endpoint. And now I've got a circle that's the same size as that. Then you can either list the radius or just make copies of it. So you can actually trace stuff from the PDF. As a matter of fact, this is the technique I used when I digitized the elevations around the perimeter. Remember these? Remember when you imported these points from the original grading plan? This is the technique I used. I X-referenced the PDF of the grading plan, and then I just put manual points at all the locations from the PDF, and I typed in all the numbers. Do we create the boundary from the left or the right lot line? Do we create the boundary from the left or the right lot line from the area's boundary? Do we create it from the left? I'm not sure what you mean, Tron. The area's boundary. Do we create the boundary from the left or lot line from the area's boundary? Sorry, I'm not sure what you mean, Tron. You want to unmute yourself? You want to ask the question? You can unmute yourself. How do you split the areas? Oh, and you're talking about these backyards here now, right? Because of these lines? Okay, so let me go back to here. If you have a drainage area, right? So if you have a drainage area that you want to split, let me bring back the drainage areas. Storm. So if you decide you want to split them, right? So suppose you decide you have to split here, right? So I'm going to draw a polyline from this endpoint to this endpoint. Okay, I want to split this in two. Put it on the same layer. And I'm going to isolate the layer. So this is the line I'm going to use to split. So I'm going to isolate this, right? So this area wants to be split into two parts. Is that what you're trying? Okay, so I'm going to make a copy of the area, right? The area I want to split and the split line. So this and this, I'm going to make a copy. Okay, so it's one area, right? It's just one, but I want to split it into two parts. Well, I'm going to use my boundary command, like I showed you before. BO for boundary. I'm going to pick, split it here and here. And now I can get rid of this and this, and now I have two parts. Same command as before, remember the boundary? And then you can put it on the same layer with the same style. Delete this one, put this back where it belongs, endpoint to endpoint. Move this bubble over and make a copy. Right, and then list the area. The area for this one is 0.05. The area for this one is 0.06. So just change this to 05 and 06. Right, 05, 06. No, I was asking about how you build the limits. How you build the limits from the PDF. I don't understand the question. The limits.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead.
For the
Tron?
PDF, yeah, it's me, Tron. So if you scroll down to the backyard and if you scroll to the boundary between the lot, I mean the storm or sanitary area there, the dash
Down
line.
here?
Yeah, so the vertical dash line that serves as the boundary between the two areas. Yeah, it comes in the middle, right? It doesn't come in the lot line.
That's fine. So what I would do is once you get the PDF georeference, I'm going to draw a polyline from the midpoint, right? Or even you can go right from the manhole from here, or the midpoint here. This rectangle has a midpoint right here. That's the center. And then you could just bring it perpendicular to the street line, right? And that will split your backyard. So no, it doesn't have to be on the lot line. It can be. You can split it on the lot line if you want, but it doesn't have to be.
So in the corner, would I just line up like that, even though it's not like?
You're talking about this?
To the right, to the east side. So at the corner, no, at the east side, the right side.
Oh, sorry, here. Yeah.
So between 5 and 6, would I just draw the boundary between the lot line between 5 and 6 because that's.
I would probably use this corner right here.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's kind of between the two boundaries, right? There's this area and this area. So I would use this point right here. Yeah.
That makes sense. All right, thank you.
Again, it's not that sensitive, right? If you use this or you use this, or you use it's not going to be that sensitive. You're going to see hectares, right? If you change, in order to change the area, because we're in hectares, right? To change this number, this 0.29, to change that from 0.29 to 0.30 is 100 square meters. Remember?
Yeah.
So it's not that sensitive, right? So you can be, as long as you're close, it doesn't have to be exact, but that's where I would put it, if that's your question, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. So I have another question. Since there's no high point in between, would the entire area would flow like some of it would flow to lateral way, right? So.
Yeah, so in here, there is a high point here.
Yeah, so the entire.
So if you drew an area here, I would split it. I would split it on this mark here.
Yep. So we have like one boundary at that already, but from lot number 4 all the way to the left, there's no boundary in my grading. So would it mean
from here all the way to here?
Yeah, there's no high points.
No, but there are manholes. There are manholes. So are you talking about the front or the backyard?
The backyard.
Yeah, the backyard, you would use this divide and this divide from the PDF.
Yeah, so we just assume that it will flow to the south side regardless.
Yeah, we're designing a sheet flow, yeah.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, and then we'll check it. Hopefully it works. Okay, I haven't done this before. In the past, I've actually put in rear lot catch basins over here to bring the flow back inside. Okay? But I'm going to try bringing it. I'm going to see if we can get away with it this year because these pipes are new and they're all designed to go into the same pond that the rest of the site is going to. So the pond is designed to take that total flow. It's just a matter of which route. Are we going to take all this through this area or all of the road plus some backyards through this area, right? At the end of the day, they all go to the same pond. So I'm not worried about the final destination. I'm worried about the route, right? Are these pipes 1, 2, 3, 4 big enough to handle a little extra flow from the backyards? And we'll find out. We'll do that together. Okay, but that's for next week. That's for next week, yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? How to show the how to do the existing ground? I can go to the topo. So I'm not going to save this, and I'm not going to save this. So I'm going to open the topo. Did you have a problem, Sumitra, with your first submission with the surface? You didn't get 4 out of 4? So if you didn't get perfect on it, you might have missed one of the steps. There's 4 things you have to do. Okay, I'm going to delete this. I'm going to start over again. Okay, so the points are imported. Can I start there, Sumitra? Now that I have all the data in the drawing, you know how to import the points, right? The first bullet point for submission 2. You're not talking about the surface. You're talking about the style. You're talking about the style, not the surface. You're not recreating the surface. Oops. The style, yeah. So for the style, I'll show you where things are. Okay, I can do it right here. So in the settings tab, you go to surface, surface styles, right? There's probably only 2. I always start with the standard one. Right click, make a copy. Go to the information tab, change the name, contours, or whatever I asked you to do, okay? Whatever the name is. The name really doesn't matter, but give it a name. To change the contour interval, you go to contours, you go to contour interval, and you change the numbers here, right? So I told you what to use here. I think it's 1/4 and 1. And once you have the contours, you go to the display tab, make sure that they're on and the triangles are off. And that'll give you the style you need. Okay? Once that style is created, then you have to apply it to the surface, right? Surface properties, and then change the style to the new style that has the new display settings, and then you should see your contours and no triangles. Okay, so always start with a copy the standard style, change the name in the information tab, and then change the settings, right? And under contours, under contour intervals, that's where you change the interval, and under display, make sure you turn on what you want to see and turn off what you don't want to see. Okay? And if you go back to the CDA files, there's a PDF that shows you how to create styles for surfaces. So there's a reference document there as well. But it's as simple as that, really. Okay, so the surface is ready, just change it. And you don't do that here, you do it in the base plane, right? You want to change the style in the base plane. Okay, good. Any other questions? Okay, so I'm not teaching anything new today, obviously. The class is over. I just wanted to answer some last minute questions. Try and get this done. Again, it's due Friday. Okay, I hope most of you are already done. I notice just over half the class is here. I have had students email me for some one-on-one meeting time, which I've been able to do. I'm going to try, I've got some that I haven't answered back yet, I will. I might be able to do some meetings tomorrow early morning. I'm going to try like maybe 8:30, not 8:30 to 9:30 I'm available, but after that I'm teaching all day tomorrow. So I'm not going to have a lot of time tomorrow. Thursday morning I'll be available again, so I'll schedule you. So if you have any questions, email me, ask me for a meeting, and I'll set up a meeting. I'll send you a meeting request. Okay, and if that time that I propose doesn't work for you, then we'll figure it out. Okay, but you ask me, and I'll prepare the meeting, and I'll invite you. Okay, that's it for today. You know, there's quite a bit of work to do, but if you've been following along, and I hope, like I said, my hope is that whatever information I cover in class in a given week, you should have that work done for the following week, or as much of it as possible. So if you keep pace with me, by the time you get to the week that things are due, shouldn't be too much more to do, okay? But don't wait till the last minute, okay? Because if you try and do everything I teach for each submission in one day, it's pretty heavy. There's a lot there. Should we delete the PDF? If you want to keep it, you can actually unload it. If you go to your xref, right, you can actually unload it and leave it there. Because if you detach it, then you have to georeference it again if you decide you want to see it again. So you could just leave it in the background if you want, right? Just unload it, okay? So what am I talking about? Let's look at this, I'll show you. Once you go to your xref, and I remember I have the topo x referenced, right? If you go to xref, right? See how it says there's that X there? I can reload it. So there's my topo, right? Or I can unload it. So you can reload and unload it. And if you leave the PDF and you just unload, when you unload it, when you reload it, it remains georeferenced in case you want to see it again. I would suggest if you take the time to georeference it, like I showed you with the align command, then I wouldn't throw that work away, right? So I would just unload it. Or if it's on a layer by itself, like I did, I remember I put on a layer called xref. If you put it on a layer, you can freeze the layer and not see it that way, right? So you could unload it, or you can freeze the layer it's on, or both. And whatever you do, you're not going to see it. So no, I don't want to see it, but you can certainly leave it in the drawing. That's not a problem. Because it's work you did, and you don't want to do it again in case you have to go back to it. All right, any other questions? Okay, so I'll try and, for those of you who have emailed me and asked me for a meeting, I'm going to try and get those requests out this evening and hopefully set something up for early tomorrow or Thursday. Okay, thanks for the applause, Zario. I appreciate that. Okay, take care, everybody. I'll see you next week. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for attending.